Jeff Dawson here. It's August 22nd, 2020. Amazon best-selling author of Love's True Second Chance, Why Did Everything Happen, Living with Breast Cancer, Gateway pH, and Occupation. I was watching some videos on Facebook today about the continuing protests in Portland. And I got to thinking, what would a civil war in America look like today? Now, this is going to be a little odd. We've seen all the statues that were torn down. Whether you agree or disagree is not the issue here. Our country in 1776 was a country of traitors. To us we weren't, but to England we were. Why? Because we rebelled against the supposed crown. We rebelled against the government that we had to answer to. So that made the whole country rebels, traitors, patriots. Yes, you can throw all of those names in there. So we gained our freedom from the crown. Not once, because they came back in 1812 and wanted another crack at us, and that didn't turn out too well either. But at that time, you would think we were a united country. On the East Coast, to a degree, but you still had a divide between the North and the South. Because we know slavery was big in the South because of all the crops they could grow. Those wouldn't grow up north. Thus, the North became more industrialized. And the South stayed agrarian. In England, for the most part, thought, okay, even though we got our ass kicked twice, we're going to leave them alone because not only did they have the slave trade going for them as an economic engine, they had the crops of the South going for them, and they also had the banks that had financed the New World, so they had multiple revenue streams from the New World. Even though we were traitors and we were rebels, we figured out how to work that out because trade was still king. Money still makes the world go round. Now think about that. Then we have 1861. We all know what happened there. We had the Civil War, North and the South. And here we go again. Now, you've got France and England sitting on the sidelines watching this because everybody wants to be on the winning side. And it's kind of like after the Ottoman Empire collapsed, Turkey through World War I and World War II played both sides of the fence all through it, kept their trade going, but kept their neutrality. So here, France and England, known enemies, don't like each other at all. They want to see how this is going to play out. So who are they going to support? Well, what do you think about that? France helped us in the revolution. Again, they hated England. England seems to have that going for them quite a bit through the world. Of course, they were the largest empire of the time. We had history, had Egypt, had Rome. We had Great Britain. There were others, but those were the monsters of their day. So we have the Civil War. We know how that works out. The South gets crushed. Today, you've seen it in the news, you've seen it with the statues. They were evil. They were bad. They were traitors. They were rebels. Well, hell, our whole country, to claim its independence, were traitors and rebels. So what would make anyone think that that line of thinking would just disappear overnight? We founded on being rebellious. We spit in the eye of the King of England. Now the historians, you can go back and you can read all the accounts you want to and make your own deductions. I was born in Ohio. I spent 9 years in Delaware. We moved to Tulsa. So now I'm in Oklahoma in the South. And when my friends would talk to me that were Southerners about the South and go on, I would just end the debate with, well, we won the war. They didn't always like that answer, but it kept a heated discussion getting out of control. Look, we won the war. It's over. Move on. Today, we're seeing a different type of rebellion. You see it in the streets of Minneapolis, St. Louis, Dallas, Jacksonville, LA, Seattle, Portland, New York City. Go through the list. Now, if you watch the news, these are all Democratic strongholds. We understand that. But there are conservatives that live in these areas too. Yes, they are a minority. But they are standing up. They are being heard. So where are we headed with this? To me, the difference is this is politically motivated. And the MSM, or mainstream media, is pushing this narrative to the max. Well, what is to be gained by continuously dividing American citizens? We can have different ideologies. We can have different policies that we prefer depending which party you back, Libertarian, Democratic, Republican. But in the past, we have always been able to work that out. For me, it started getting really bad when Bill Clinton became president and the PC movement exploded. Now, you didn't see that under Reagan. You didn't see it under Carter, Ford, Nixon. It popped up with the Clintons. And since then, we have been in a downward spiral on divisiveness. That's just a fact. And it's gotten worse. And it started with the media. They gave the Clintons the soft touch for whatever reason. Now remember, CNN was the first 24-hour news agency, and I actually watched it when it first started because it was the news. It wasn't a show. All of the major networks have become a show. And this is not a good thing. Because in today's climate, the harder you push a narrative, the worse it's going to get. The more anger, the more hate, the more angst, the more terror you're going to see. And look at those cities and see what's going on. And then look at the politicians and see what they're saying. Who is supporting this? Who is not supporting this? Who is in favor of law and order? Who is in favor of a free-for-all? Who gives a damn and who doesn't give a damn? This is the current divide in the country. That's what makes this situation extremely volatile and extremely dangerous. In the Civil War of 1861, you always heard the stories of brother against brother and families fighting for the North, another wing fighting for the South. But those lines were pretty definitive and easily drawn. This time, they aren't. You're going to have citizens against citizens, counties against counties, states against states. And somewhere down the road, it can be state governments against the federal government. That's what we're looking at. That is the gravity of this situation, and why cooler heads damn well better wake up and realize what's going on. You have a problem with your police force? Then let's fix it. Demobilizing and defunding it isn't going to fix it. Because if you don't have one, then you have anarchy. Hell, even the communist countries have a police force. You think the USSR didn't have the GRU or the KGB? Yes, their law and order was based on the communist government in place. But they had law and order. They had a police force. North Korea has a police force. China has a police force. Yes, they are oppressive regimes, but that's the way they keep the peace that they want. So what makes you think that people in the United States in metropolitan cities can live without a police force? Well, that's just some serious dumbassery. We'll have community officers. Yeah, walk into a situation where the suspects are armed and see how far your community officer gets while they're waving their pamphlet of, well, we need to talk and you need to read this. Yeah, bullshit. Force has to be met with force. And I would say 95% of the police in the United States are trained in that very idea. You only use force when you have to. It is the last resort. And there are plenty of videos on YouTube or Facebook where you can see how patient and professional these men and women are. That includes the federal troops, the federal agencies. They are professional until they are provoked. You come after them, they will come after you. So when I see people screaming and crying and the feds did this and the police did that, yeah, but what did you do to instigate it? Or does that not matter? And for quite a few people, it doesn't seem to matter because the police are evil. So a civil war in America is going to be a mess. And it's going to be a bloodbath. and it doesn't have to be. Are there radicals on the left? Yes. Are there radicals on the right? Yes. But those are the fringe elements. But the fringe elements are getting all of the press today. And because of that, they are fueling the flames of a potential coming civil war. It won't affect them because they'll be in their ivory castles. They'll just be reporting the body count. They'll be reporting the damage. But they're going to be like France and England, who wants to be on the winning side. And that is what is going to dictate our broadcasts. I've looked at the DFW area where I live. Fort Worth, conservative. Dallas, Democratic, liberal. Okay, I've lived there 30 years. But then you start breaking down the sections. North Dallas, conservative. East, portions of East, a bulk of West and South Dallas, Democratic, liberal. Can you see those two sides going to war? Can you see Tarrant County, and it's not all of Tarrant County, but a good portion of it, joining in the fight? Where would it stop? Would Texas be split in half like it was before statehood, where Mexico got half of the state? The Americans got the northern part, but at that time, nobody wanted the western part because they couldn't do anything with it. They didn't have cattle. There was no water out there. So Texas was very fractured. You see that happening again? Yeah, I do. Northern California, conservative. Southern California, not so much. Folks, it's time to pull our heads out. It's time for the police to do their job. Stop the violent protests. To the political leaders who want to let it continue on, I'm sorry, they need to go. They are part of the problem. They are allowing these cities to be torn apart and are accepting no responsibility. Where will they be when you need them to stand behind you? Where will they be when a mob comes down your street and destroys your business, your livelihood, your home, your family? They won't be down there. They'll be in their gated neighborhoods, their secure homes, spouting off useless rhetoric that will solve nothing. The time for words is over. This is a time for action. And I'm not trying to change anyone's mind on who to vote for in November, because that's your personal choice. That is not for me to decide for you. It is not for me, as the MSM does on a daily basis, tell you who you should vote for. You will vote for the representatives, the senators, and the president that you believe will do the best job. But look at how your candidates are handling the current violence. If they aren't denouncing it, if they aren't calling it out, you have to think about your personal safety. Because if there is no police force, then who governs the country? Who makes sure we're safe? Who will be there when you call 911? No one. Or it will be a massive backlog. This is not what we as Americans want. We need a unified country. As I said earlier, we can have differing political ideas and ideologies, but we have to be Americans first and foremost. And the only way to do that, and the only way to be able to sit down and talk to each other, is to do it with a lawful society. Otherwise, when law and order breaks down and civil unrest goes unchecked, the only way to bring it back and retain some semblance of peace is to arm yourselves and take to the streets. And God help us if we come to that.